Hello, I'm Jen, and this is The Pilot Principle, the podcast where I've gotten off my old soapbox, the one I used to stand on and tell people that each series needs to be given at least 3 episodes in order to find its groove, and I now stand on this new soapbox where I profess a pilot episode be the only measure of worth of a series. Today, we are playing detective across space and time, and no, this isn't another one of my Doctor Who specials. We are, in fact, taking a look at the pilot episode of Netflix's Bodies. Here's an autopsy of the programme's run through. Firstly, I start with talking about the cast and crew, who's in it and what they've done before. Then I move on to talk about the pilot synopsis and discuss why I chose to watch the programme in the first place. Next, I moved on to talking about the first 10 minutes before dissecting the main characters, what I did and didn't like about the pilot episode, and whether or not I will continue to watch it and whether or not you should too. And finally, I'll give it a pilot episode rating. Capiche? Vamos! Here's what we're working with for Bodies, which Netflix describes as mind-bending and suspenseful, and I am surprised they didn't use their favourite word, cerebral. The pilot title is You're Dead Already, and it has an episode length of 55 minutes. You're Dead Already was written by Paul Tomalin, who is also the series creator and executive producer. Now, Tomalin hasn't done loads of stuff. He's written an episode of Torchwood, the Doctor Who spin-off series, an episode of Shameless, the original UK version, and an episode of The Frankenstein Chronicles. Finally, between 2015 and 2018, Tomalin wrote 5 episodes of the Channel 4 drama series No Offence. You're Dead Already was directed by Marco Cruz-Paintner. I apologise, my German is non-existent. Now, Cruz-Paintner hasn't done many things I recognise, but I'll read out a few in case you do. He has directed the 2016 TV movie Your Children, 7 episodes of the 2018 series Beat, 2 episodes of AMC's Soulmates, which I have heard of but never watched. And also, interestingly for me, he directed 4 episodes of Sky One's The Lazarus Project. If you're new here, I have mentioned The Lazarus Project a few times, as it was one of my favourite TV programmes to come out of 2022. It's also a time-bending show, so I'd say You're Dead Already and Cruz-Paintner's 3 other episodes he directs for Bodies are in very good hands. You're Dead Already stars Amaka Okafor, and she plays the character Shahara Hassan. Okafor has popped up in various bits of British television, including Series 2 of BBC's The Split. Now, listen to me, people. The Split was one of my favourite shows to come out of the BBC that wasn't a police drama. It lasted for, I believe, 3 series and is about a family of divorced lawyers. And at the heart is the older sister, Hannah, who is dealing with her own marital issues. Hannah is played by Nicola Walker, who I absolutely adore as an actress. But back to the primary actress, Amaka Okafor. She also had a role in the ITV drama Des, the BritBox original Grace, and the BBC series The Responder, another 2022 fave for me. Next on the principal cast list, we have Jacob Fortune Lloyd as DS Carl Whiteman. Fortune Lloyd has quite a long list, so let's plough through with the top hitters. He has starred in Wolf Hall, The Collection, Medici, The Queen's Gambit, The Power, The Great, as well as the movies Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, See How They Run, and The Musketeers, D'Artagnan. And finally on the main cast list, we have Carl Solar, who plays D.I. Edmund Hillinghead. Solar has starred in the 2012 film Anna Karenina, and for TV, You, Me and the Apocalypse, Silent Witness, Poldark, and Andor. Some additional names to mention who make a brief appearance in this episode are Shira Haas, who plays DC Iris Maplewood. Haas has been in the miniseries Unorthodox, the TV series Shitzel, and will have a role in the upcoming Captain America Brave New World movie. And finally, we have Stephen Graham as an unknown character within the pilot episode, so we'll keep it like that for now. He has a vast filmography, which includes, for film, Snatch, Gangs of New York, This Is England, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and Matilda the Musical, the movie. For TV, he starred in Broadwalk Empire, Little Boy Blue, Code 404, Peaky Blinders, and most recently, Boiling Point. I have done an episode on Boiling Point if you've been thinking about giving the BBC series based on the movie of the same name a watch. And as mentioned, Bodies can be watched on Netflix, and it has a series length of 8 episodes. Also to note that Bodies is not an original. I mean, what is these days? It is actually based on the graphic novel written by Cy Spencer. Now that we've discussed who's who, let's move on to what's what with the pilot episode synopsis. On Long Harvest Lane in London, a body is found, and found, and found. It's the same body found thrice across 3 different time periods, and we observe 3 different detectives trying to crack the very mysterious case. Simple enough, right? And for me, genuinely, I haven't seen a single trailer for this show, not just because I rarely watch trailers, but because I am an absolute sucker for anything to do with time. We're talking time manipulation, time travel, the perils of playing with time, the way time can do you dirty, the way it did those kids in that movie Time Trap. Outlander, for example, is a show that I had heard of but didn't think much about until someone told me it involved a cheeky bit of time travel, and then I was all over it like butter on bread. Which is why when I read something like a body is discovered across 4 different timelines, I immediately added bodies to my let me know when this is out list on Netflix, which might not be enough for some people, but it was a really good hook for me. Speaking of hooks, it's time to talk about the first 10 minutes of Bodies. Now, if you've been here before, you can say this along with me, and if you've never heard this before, then this is for you, the people at the back. I was always taught that the first 10 minutes of a TV pilot script and feature film script is where you need to really grip your audience, especially in today's day and age, because if you haven't caught somebody in those first 10 minutes, they're likely to turn away and just find something else to watch. So that's why I always look at the first 10 minutes of a pilot script, because this is the cut-off point in a way. It's where your reader and your audience says yay or nay. The first minute of the pilot episode of Bodies, You're Dead Already, is taken over by the credits. The word bodies, fragmented, is being pieced back together over a creepy violin soundtrack. Then we come in on London as the sun comes up and women are going on a group run. We are specifically interested, however, in one woman, and we get a couple of snippets of her life. When she gets home from her run, it seems like she lives with her father and it's his birthday, and she also has a son. This is DS Hassan, and she's been dragged into work on her day off to help man the perimeter of a far-right protest that's going on. Whilst doing so, she spots a suspicious teen but is told not to engage. Then, a couple of streetlights along the road where the protest is taking place spontaneously combust. Once everybody calms down a bit, DS Hassan notes that the boy that she's seen looking suspicious is now holding a gun, and she begins to chase him, abandoning the whole safety in numbers thing. She chases him through roads, through alleyways, up a building, and then she parkours pretty coolly down a building again before following him into Long Harvest Lane, an alleyway, where he holds a gun up and tells her to put the taser down. Oh yeah, in this same alleyway, a dead naked person is lying on the floor. There's not much chat between, the guy holding the gun and the woman holding the taser, but the guy says to her, "This isn't me." She asks for a name and she tries to help, but he of course doesn't give her one. Why would you? And he runs off, leaving DS Hassan alone with the body. Alone with the body, DS Hassan takes in the pose of the victim, who is a man. She also notes a cut on his head, a tattoo on his arm of 3 lines crossed through, and that he's been shot in the eye, which is, of course, missing. And then she calls in for backup. The year, 2023, appears on screen, and like a flip clock, we watch it flip back 82 years to 1941. The music, the cars, the sounds, everything is really immersive as we follow DS Whiteman into the station. He's a bit of a skirt chaser, as they'd say in those days, and he's been called into his boss's office where they discuss a possible snitch in the department. Back at his desk, DS Whiteman gets a call he doesn't want overheard from a mysterious woman who has an assignment for him: to drive a pre-arranged car to pick up a body at Long Harvest Lane by 10:15 p.m, to then take the body to the Royal Albert Dock and leave it there. From this interaction, we get the impression that DS Whiteman is in fact the snitch. Then all the lights in the station mysteriously flicker and a few burst akin to what happened in present-day London with DS Hassan. And that is 10 minutes. But just so I don't leave you hanging, Whiteman goes to fulfill the task that's been given to him. He drives a waiting car to Long Harvest Lane where he finds a body. The same body, lying in the same position with the same injuries. We're talking the cut on the head, the tattoo with the 3 lines crossed through, and the fact that this person has also been shot in the head through the eye, which is of course missing. Then time flips further back, this time 51 years to 1890, and that's the first 13 minutes. We'll stop there because hopefully we can all guess what sequence of events will come next. On to the main characters, and for the pilot episode we have 3. From 2023, we have DS Shahara Hassan, and she's a presumably single mother who lives with her father. She struggles balancing work and life, with work constantly invading her personal life, but she's unable or unwilling to say no. She's also empathetic. She takes on the emotional burden of finding Saeed, who is the teenager she sees with the gun, and trying to help him. And she's tenacious. She's clearly the kind of person who won't let this case fall to the wayside. If things don't add up, your girl's going to be grabbing a calculator. She's cool and she gets on with it and she gets shit done. From 1941, we have D.S. Carl Whiteman, who is supposed to be a ladies' man, gag. He's also Jewish and unfortunately has to deal with anti-Semitic comments from one of his colleagues, but he manages to keep his cool every time. As he is going around playing double agent, it's hard to know what his real face is. And by that I mean whether or not he's a snake or he has another personal, more relatable motive for getting embroiled with a mysterious group. We don't not like him, but we also don't trust him. Then finally, from 1890, we have D.I. Edmund Hillinghead. He's a good cop in a team of bad cops, or cops who think they can play by their own rules, i.e. beating up witnesses in public, etc. Like D.S. Hassan, he is more of a sympathetic officer. Unlike D.S. Hassan and more like D.S. Whiteman, we don't know anything about his life outside of the station and the mystery at hand. But we like him well enough, and following him around 1890 London and watching the historical methods of deduction with such close comparison is very, very interesting. With every protagonist, you have an antagonist, but in this case, we don't quite know who or what the big bad is yet, but we mostly get glimpses of them in the 1941 timeline. And the big bad is whatever the organisation is pulling the strings with D.S. Whiteman as their puppet. All we have is a woman on the phone that we only ever see from the back, and she wants the body that shows up at Long Harvest Lane. Their presence, the presence of this mysterious woman and perhaps the organisation she represents, does make itself known in 2023 when someone uses the same phrase they do, "Know you are loved." Now, at first, that phrase sounds like a term of endearment when we hear it being said to D.S. Whiteman. Then perhaps it feels a bit like a code word when it comes up with him again. But when we hear it for the third time in 2023, it sounds like a threat. And then those first loose threads of the mystery and power surrounding that phrase are left dangling for us to unpick. Now, I wouldn't quite say that I had a really standout favourite moment from the pilot episode, You're Dead Already, but there were parts of it that I did enjoy. For example, there was a scene where D.S. Hassan is in a pub and on the wall there is a picture of D.I. Hillinghead, the detective from 1890. Right now, those immediately flaring questions of who took that picture, why and when don't matter, because for us it's the first tangible thread we have that these events are happening not only in the same time, but in the same space. This sort of goes hand in hand with the constant symmetry throughout, because not only is Long Harvest Lane the same, but the police building and the morgue space across the three timelines are also the same. I did also like that there was a clear colour palette used to distinguish each time. So there was a bit of a cold blue for 2023, an overexposed sepia for 1941, and a sandy warm yellow for 1890. And I always think it's nice when somebody puts in that sort of extra bit of effort when it comes into the visual details. So it goes beyond more than what you're seeing, but how what you're seeing makes you feel and the association that it makes you have. So, for example, if a scene cut from one building to another building, of course I could tell because of the historical differences, but I'd also be able to tell because of the colour palette that's been established in this pilot episode. Flipping over to what I didn't like, there actually wasn't anything. There's nothing even for me to nitpick on, so I'm just going to jump right ahead to discussing the end of episode Hook. In 2053, we meet Detective Maplewood, and we also catch a glimpse of Stephen Graham's unknown character as a projected hologram. There is some sort of power surge in the area, and lights flicker and electric cars stop, the source of which, according to Detective Maplewood's AI companion, is Long Harvest Lane. And, well, if you don't know what she finds when she gets there, you clearly haven't been paying any attention. The ending of the episode works really well because sure, it's another repetition and we already have so many questions at this point and there are a bunch of different characters to follow, but it's like dessert. Sure, you're full, but you've got a separate stomach for post-dinner sweet treats, and the future is a treat no one can pass up. Regarding the serial arc, there are two main threads, I think. There's the man in the alley and the organisation pulling certain strings. With the man in the alley, the questions are, of course, who is he and how did he get there again and again and again and again? And with the organisation, we want to know who they are, what do they know, what power do they hold, what lengths will they go to keep it, and who else do they have in their pockets. Overall, the pilot episode of Bodies, You're Dead Already, did all the right things. We introduced characters, locations, a murder mystery, and personal problems, and that was all over 4 different timelines and within 55 minutes. The questions I have at the end of the pilot episode that would make me consider continuing the series, or at least the second episode, are: Know You Are Loved, what does that mean? I even thought about sort of putting it into an acronym, KYWL. What does that mean? Will we see it again? How does hearing those words affect certain people? Who was Saeed meeting? Saeed is the boy that DS Hassan chases into the alleyway where she finds the body, and she wants to help him before he can hurt himself or hurt others. So she sets up a meeting with him, but before she meets with him, he's met with somebody else, and the question is, who is that person? In 1980, a man is caught on camera in a photograph in the alleyway where the body is found, and the question, of course, is, who is this man? Because when D.I. Hillinghead shows his photo to somebody else, they panic. Finally, will D.S. Whiteman in 1941 continue to get away with playing both sides? So now the big question, will I be continuing with Bodies? Pause for dramatic effect. Yes. I wasn't overly gassed up by the end of the episode, but it was an enjoyable, well-paced watch, and I do enjoy guessing who done it, or in this case, what's going on. And something tells me Bodies will go on a bit of a wild ride before we get the answers to those questions. Also, we didn't get Stephen Graham's character in this episode, and I don't know about you, but I want to know what part he'll be playing in the series. But that's just me, and you'll likely agree if you like your shows a little complicated so you can play detective too. You don't want something that's too intense every episode, and you don't mind not diving too deep into the lives of the principal characters, especially with so much else going on. In terms of my rating for You're Dead Already, the pilot episode, I would give it a 4 out of 5. Now, be warned, I am a tough critic, so what I call a 4, other people might call a 5. I just think that for something that has the propensity to be incredibly confusing, it was easy to follow, and I'm left with all the right questions at the end of the pilot episodes. Nobody irritated me, so no complaints. Now that we've hashed out the fundamental principles, will you be giving the pilot episode a watch? Or have you already binged all 8 episodes of Bodies? Let me know over on Twitter/X at Pilot Principle, where you can also let me know what TV pilot you'd like me to look at next. Follow and rate this podcast on your audio streamer of choice, and I'll catch you on the next episode.